This kissing on the dinner. Jina Jeju Simbigi, Jovala Lapche, Yamlin Chili Kabla, and Gabrielia, and Jiggy Jeju Simbi Jovat and Kabigi, and Tumaru Juaina, and the Jiggy Pumbo Sumpigi, Dolava Duenchina, and Yilen so Selen Sumno to Shituenche Shawkores, and the Nigi, and Dea, and Chicken, and Diwashana, the Nigi, Jeju Simbigi, Zadum Maimbe, Nigella Soparoshina, Dene, and Chicken, Impotu Shukuni, and Udushine, Denje, Impotu Shukuni to Shawkores, all those children kissing, I didn't sure.
Good evening. Last week we concluded with looking at a verse, well, two verses, which, whilst presenting that the various practices that a bodhisattva needs to train their mind in are limitless. They need to start out by emphasizing the need to, or emphasizing trainings to purify the mind. And they should engage in such direct endeavors 3 times by day and 3 times at night. And of the various means that one can engage in to purify the mind, one should rely on the 4 opponent powers.
That didn't my differentiate. Rangam Shengi Wanya Room, Negab Kando, Jishe Gang, Labar Sumba Ganimbe, Negab de la Bete Labs.
Continuing with the very next verse, the 99th from the 5th chapter. Wherever, whenever, whatever you are doing, whether for oneself or for others, diligently practice the training that has been taught for just such an occasion.
Rangam Shengi Wanya Room, Rangi Dendo in that, and the Shengi Dendo Randenda, Shendu Gangi Wondu Chene, and the Kawatuba in Naya, and the Negab Kando. Jishu Jans, the Negi, Negab Sitim, the Chige, Madu, Negab, Ningu, Negab, and Ningu, and Benet, or Temi, Negabla Sopata Kiwi, the Negi Lungi Juba, Niki, Kanto Juba in there. Yaji Negab said, do you allow Madu, the Ningu, the Chiro said, do some Javana, Negab do some Juba. Negab said, the Leon, Chike, Karsuri, and Dove, Negab, Dove, Negab, Dine, and the Chigi, Gishi, Negab, the kissing of the Gish, the show, and the Joat in the Dungo, said, Savi, Negab, and the Negab, the Negi, your water, Dove, Nega, Gishi, Nega, Savi, Nega, Dove, Dubi, Nega, Plasopa, the Negi, never Kanukando in there, Danakando in there, Rungagi, the Negi, Jawaki, Chawala, Jeff, Kaso, Jang, Lover, Sumba, Ganyimpa. Negab de la Peteja, said the Sanji, Labour Somba, Sanji, Jason, Joba de Solution, La Guri, Sonship, Delia, Migawa Chene, and La Guri, said Labour Somba Ganyimba, Ne Ganyimba, says, then it is Migawa Chen La Guri. There's some chas on it.
Geshe looks at the first 3 lines of the Tibetan, which for us it starts with the 2nd line, the 1st line, and then the 4th line. So we could all...
Rangam, Shengi, doing you want to chin that Negab Delia, and Gavig Jawa County Lunga used to give Jawa and Yamen Chegore as a County Chichu can send you, and the Chegore as a Dignity.
So just the first 2 lines there. So whether when one is engaging in an activity of sorts, whether it is directly whether it's for others or for oneself, and wherever, whenever, whatever you're doing, then one should be doing so in accordance with the trainings that one has received. So when we think of whenever, that would be a term indicating time. So whether one is engaging in virtuous activities in the morning, the afternoon, or at night, and if wherever one happens to be, if in one's place of residence or out in community, or whatever one is doing, and whatever here, this is a term that will link to much of what has been presented in recent verses. In that Shantideva has presented in the 37th verses around the 37th, he was talking about how to physically walk, or how to walk and to benefit, how to speak on the 79th, looking at others, about abiding in solitude. More recently, there is verses, the 92nd and 93rd, on eating and sitting, and last week we looked at one in preparing to go to sleep. So a wide variety of activity in terms of whatever one is doing.
Adela siktambo del rangam shenji ondo wanya rungse rangi dengu ondo chewe neda shenji ondo jibe jine nyamne chewe na ja sungorwada rangam shense tisada jenyu semba dige nyamne chebala nyamne chebade shen simje khone dunde chebamada rangdengi dunde kiwe nyamne chebaji yunggo marwa tisa rangam shenji sede tisa jenyu semba dela shen simje khone dunde nyamne chigoro kewa kadrubene shen simje khone dunde chigoro 제자다 랑기 된다라야 랑이 디기요야 랑이기 안에 직강하세야 디기투야 안에 랑이 안에 지게 된다라야 안삼다제 개어 두고 말하다 모두 반자다 랑기 된도 랑기 된게 온도전에 개어 주나 세야디 안에 저 랑된 세야디 저삼 현다시 던 거야 자고래.
So when we look at it in English, we have in the second line, whether for oneself or for others. So we should not understand this in the way that for us ordinary people we would relate to doing things for oneself. Because a bodhisattva, everything they do is focused on others. So when we read here, whether for oneself, this does not mean that the bodhisattva would be engaging in activities to overcome their own problems or to experience some happiness. In other words, focusing on their own benefits, achieving goals for themselves. This is never the focus of a bodhisattva.
마인바제 다디갈을 걸었으면 다 랑드엔시들 랑드엔 최고세요. 가지고 꾸리야 최고다 수구세 이용으로와 제가 랑드엔 최고 현대 수구세요. 그래도 랑이 된 탈침발라 네 최고 도고 그래서 그러다 랑드엔 최고特别 제도 개념에 제가 가르쳐 나서 그러다 랑드엔 최고고디 랑드엔 최고세야디 디토비하게 되나 랑이 탈침발라 랑이 최고 도고 그래 최고 맛없나 랑이 탈치 못하고 말제자다 꾸디라 랑드윈 꾸다 현드윈 꾸니제 저 랑드윈 최고세 제자 랑이 되에서도 랑드윈 최고特别 치도 개념에 가르쳐 보이나야 사실 그거다 랑드윈세야디 지난 저와 나에 대해 숨민이 되나 되리에서 모든 게 삽니다.
Because for ordinary beings, doing something for oneself, we know the meaning. This doesn't need to be explicitly stated, but it would seem very surprising that bodhisattvas would engage in something for themselves. This is not the focus of bodhisattvas. So what does it mean then, whether for oneself or for others? So my way of reading this, and just to say as an aside, because the Tibetan in this line isn't clear, so one relies on commentaries. So in your own translations, if you're looking at other books, some of them translate this line differently. So back to what Geshe is saying, whether for oneself or for others, the way I understand this would be that bodhisattvas strive to achieve their own benefit or the benefit of others in terms of the focus of whether their activity will lead to the achievement of the Dharmakaya, which is expressed as being for one's own benefit, or this Rupakaya, which is for the benefit of others. In other words, the truth body, the truth body of the Buddha, this is achieved for one's own benefit, whereas the form body, the Rupakaya, is for the benefit of others. So therefore, whether one is engaging in the accumulation of causes that will lead to the result of the Dharmakaya, which would be for one's own benefit, for oneself, or the form body, the Rupakaya, which is for others. This is then the way that I understand this line.
랑신 남다기 철기비 원이 고시 오르다 원이 고시 디 소소라랑다 상기 고방 토발라 랑기 유념모 바샤다 제바 마방바나 상기 고방 토토야 메레 제자 라니 되니 라니기 된다 타르 침발라 근데 라니 유념모 바샤다 제바 빵고고레 제자 디 빵베 빵바디 토고고레 제자 디 토바야 토바 제비 토비야게 된다라 니면 개변냐면 가르쳐봐 제야들다 라든 추고 되니 토베 치도 안에 라든 유고 토베 되는 개변냐면 제바 제자다 디네 시시아 탐정원순도 타르침베 예시 상이 유기 셰바 이시디디야 라든 추고래 거래 제자 디 소소라랑기 타르침발로 최탐정원순도 또바 타르침바 고고마도 최탐 가시에 또 가시마도 어디 하모고에는 타르침바 자고 말아 제자다 라니기 된 타르침발라 라니 유모 바체데 제바 빵고고래 대 빵베 빵바데 다 라든 추고 다 라니 타르침발라 라니기 시자 탐제 마시바 탐제 빵제 셰 최탐정 원순도 바 타르침고고래 타르침베 예시데 랑길로 토고래 딩이도 토바에는 라든 타르침발이다 라든 타르침발이든 라든 빵고야 가야 말에 빵고야 찾아 리스네 빵 차와래 톱고야 연된 찾아 톱 차와래 제산지자 라든 추고세 제산다 상이 파비 유유 녀모바 바체다 집에 빵베 빵바고 된데라 아니 뭐니고스 아니 디야 추고세 오래 아니 상이 파비 유 원숨도 배시 켐바델라다 추고스 대시 추고스도 다 원이고 대시 추고 디군이도 라든이 꾸레스 라니 가사 라니 타르침발라 딩이도 마토나 타르침바 메베 딩이네 토바이나 라니 안에 타르침고랑도 타르침바레 제가 대자 랑기 톱자 랑드에서 랑기 톱자디 톱고에 타르투바레스 대자 라든이 꾸레 제자다 랑기 온도 제파스 라든이 꾸 토베치도 개외 냠는 가르쳐봐 이네 근데 내가 아니 뒤다 내가 뒤기 내가 땅 아니 대대 자와 가나 예집이 내가 되라 아니 도시네 롭션 냠는 지고래 해서지
To further then explain this term oneself, which, like I said, I believe refers to achieving one's own full purpose, achieving the Dharmaka, or the truth body. And in particular, of the two types of truth body would refer to the wisdom truth body. So one thinks of one's aspirations, included in those are to gain freedom from suffering, which means to eradicate the causes of suffering, namely our afflictions, but not just the afflictions, but their imprints or their seeds and the stains of those. So this is the process that comes about through the cultivation of wisdom and conjoined with bodhicitta. And so through the cultivation of wisdom conjoined with bodhicitta, one eventually comes to attain the Arya paths through realizing emptiness directly, and thereby starts the process of eradicating the afflictions together with their seeds, and eventually even the stains of the afflictions too. And when these have been completely eradicated, there is no possibility of even a false appearance arising to the mind. And now there is no obstacle, or rather there's no obscuration to perceiving reality, to perceiving things how they are. And this is the attainment of the omniscient consciousness of a Buddha. So this is expressed as being for one's own benefit. And this then is the meaning of the term here. It isn't, of course, because this arises in the continuum of a Buddha, or it is the omniscient consciousness of a Buddha. It's come about in dependence on bodhicitta, but it's expressed as being for one's own benefit because it is the process that led to the abandonment of the afflictions and their seeds to varying degrees of subtlety, and then eventually even the imprints or the stains of those afflictions. Thereby, there's no false appearance even arising to the mind. The mind now rather is omniscient.
nga juge chenpa dige shengi tong tu yo marwa ta shengi dön juba la karsane kui na pa tön je shen li ya chue sung go wa shengi dön da shen li ya la ya la kui na pa tön go re je san da kui na pa tön je shen li ya chue she nyam le je pa lam de je du shi shengi phan pa juba la ane shen de su gu su yu gu kui na pa tön go je sa di kui na pa tön ya ku de le su yu gu xiao su gu xiao re ne le ya su yu gu de le nang chen ye wa che ba ne ni yong go long je so bu ku xie da 追求故事你活的，龙学追求故事的，呀他了呀，因为这个他讲是什么泡杯的干啥，讲是什么泡杯干啥，他也那么得说了呀，确实干这个电动学习，确实干规定了的龙学追求故，规定的本来在这个对，得的话就是的。这嘛那些人啊的，的那间那切路，的那个那所有的呗，都现在老师说不归那把对接，可是呢，他可能是的学会上，可能是学习的，可能是那把的听把的听生活了，其实老师这边过，其实就是身边怕别干啥，看到了呀，吃上了，怕讲了也确实干的，老师说不过些那把过去那把对接，看着了的，他把前边去讲些些吧，上就个完了归我的，去现在就过的。 追求故事的啦，那的那个固定安住的解脱也要嘛的，其实安住这么说，但安住的解脱也安住的解脱也给那么中国的，其实的那是追求故事的啦，那安住的白天那么真的追求用过的，明那么真的追求用过的，其实的那个追求故的啦，那所用过的，本来大家来追求故的也话起的，本来叫我追求所追求超追求些，对吧？商业经验的超追求的，超追求。 가와 찍라 찍마도 배경 말에 저거 두고 찍마도 배경 말에 다디 멤버게 당한 저게 무두고 샹다되게 깨워 주고 해야다 되는 나 소워 주고 해야 되는 나 소용 거지 나다 뒤속에다 샘진이 두셔 최된제 남된제 현유 된주발라 아니 꾸인 남바도 주고서 되는 게 꾸인 수 남바텔라 다 상계기 상요고 토네 꾸인 남바도 꾸del라 수고 세워다 되는 게 수고다 龙国的诸国是你的来的，现在苏国了过，现在你过来过的，可是关注个现在缺点，现在现在判断出来，做了规模那么短期，中国为在现在缺国少了，现在可是现在苏国，现在在现有故事，现有温度结巴是对的，现在有苏国特别温度结呢，你给别人们看的结巴那样，那个当，对的，那个，你叫我看来结巴那样，都是给别人们结果来噻的，这中国的对的。 让对拿让他先级往头现在让对全国对特别多他现对苏国特别往头现在开发主办的中国人。
As I mentioned a moment ago, the Bodhisattvas strive to achieve their own goals or their own benefits or their own good, and this is achieved through the attainment of the Dharmakaya, the truth bodies, and as well as for the good or the benefits of others, and this is achieved through the attainment of the Rupakaya, the form body, because the Dharmakaya, the omniscient consciousness of the Buddha, of Buddhas, doesn't appear to beings. For the Buddha to be able to fulfill their aspiration that of bodhicitta, the Buddhas need to engage with beings. They need to interact with beings, in particular to teach and guide them. So the Dharmakaya, the wisdom, the truth body, cannot do that. It needs to arise with the body. Buddhas need to also arise in form. Therefore, there's the Rupakaya, the form body, and this is said to be for others or for the benefit or the good of others. Therefore, there's a whole this sequence of trainings that the Bodhisattva engages in leads to both the attainment of the Dharmakaya as well as the Rupakaya. The Rupakaya then is the form body. It's the body, a physical body that engages with beings, and there are two types. There's a Sambhogakaya, or the enjoyment body, and there's the Namanakaya. So in Sambhogakaya, this is the form that a Buddha appears in Pure Lands and elsewhere, engaging with Arya Bodhisattvas, teaching them the Mahayana Dharma. So an illustration of the form of a Sambhogakaya would be, for example, Tara. So Tara is a Sambhogakaya, and this is a form that Arya Bodhisattvas can directly engage in, can ask questions to, receive teachings from, and so forth. So when a being arises as a Buddha, they arise in both the Dharmakaya as well as the Rupakaya. And with the Rupakaya, there are these two types. The one is the Sambhogakaya, and this is how they appear to Arya Bodhisattvas, and they teach the Mahayana Dharma to them. But, as we well know, to ourselves, the Sambhogakaya, we cannot perceive the Sambhogakaya, or we cannot see the Sambhogakaya. So therefore, the Buddhas also need to appear in a coarser form, and therefore they arise in the Namanakaya, so as to be able to directly engage with beings, to teach them, to receive questions, and to help them in any way they can. And in fact, of the Namanakayas, there are varying types. So there's a wheel-turning Namanakaya, such as Buddha Shakyamuni. So this refers to a Buddha in a world who newly turns the wheel of Dharma. And this was the role played in our current age by Buddha Shakyamuni. And there are various other types. Geshe mentioned them. I can't remember. There's just one. I remember one other type, which is the artisanal, or artisan, and Namanakaya, and there are another one or two. And so the Buddhas appear in these various ways so that they can interact with the ordinary common beings such as ourselves and help us in any way possible, in particular, of teaching us the Dharma. So this then is the Rupakaya, or the form body of the Buddha. And this is then the meaning of the word here, others.
군이 구시 시행도 추유구 나로랴 안에 라디오 가서래 원이고다 이시추고스 이여와 치고래 제사다 직제도 추유구라고 그래 데르바 예와 전에 원이고 대시 추고스 원이고세디 산지유기 고된데 딱바래데 미다와 말에 이시추고세데 산지유 캠바 셰바데래 니 캠바데래 데 미다와래 데무 데라 니데 추고스 그래 추고들 니 예와 니체 다 수구들의 여완 수구들의 직세 디나의 여완이 제바이나 근데 롱고다 주고시 여완이 제고래 롱고다 주고 디시와 지도 구시라고 그래 제가 가브리엘 구시세네 베지나로 구시세되나 지기래 가브리엘 구니스고 지기래 구니랍나 여와치도 디나의 구시여 다가질래 구시 여완 맞지 뒤샤고 수고세 추고시 이셔 제자도 데니고 구니다 구시세다 도나디래
In teachings you receive or books you read, you would hear about these two bodies of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya. But sometimes they'll be divided in more detail. There's no contradiction, just more details presented. And you can can be presented as up to 4 bodies of the Buddha, with each, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya, having 2 subdivisions. So the Rupakaya, the form body, has the 2 subdivisions I've just mentioned, of the Sambhogakaya, which is what engages directly with Arya Bodhisattvas, and the Namanakaya, the body of the Buddha that engages with ordinary beings such as ourselves. Then the Dharmakaya has 2 divisions. The one is the wisdom truth body, which is accumulated or cultivated. It's an impermanent phenomenon. And the other is the nature truth body. This is a permanent phenomenon in that it's the very nature of the Buddha's mind.
인상은 저기 냠는 지혜들의 파신 주교로와 진비의 파신 진보 수련 세보 준비 상대 셰랍세 파신 주교로와 지산디 주 나이 조디다 수유구 세디기 왔다 등한 저 산지 구유공 주의 규 조디 가르쳐 왔으네 진비 냠는 진비 파신 세배 파신 준비 파신 어디 진바 수련 세바 디 숨디 조디 냠는 디냠랭기 규디 가리 제부 가르주바 지워선 수유고 주부 조치고 수유고 최유고 유레베선 유한 차고르데 이나 조 수유고 주에 규차고 조디 수유고 주부 규차고 예제데 나 최유고 규에 주에 토비에 유조데 가르센데 탑조데 가서 삼대나 동이도 비셔럽니들이 동반이를 유신내다 동반이 셔럽니디기 수유고 주에 유지고르데 이나 디난도 조와 가르지고서는 다 많이 최고의 토바지고 예제데 다 전주의 염려데 니가 나를 주요래
The Bodhisattva engages in a wide variety of practices, limitless as we saw last week, but it's often condensed as the 6 perfections. The 6 perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, patience, enthusiastic perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. So these practices lead to the attainment of the 2 bodies of the Buddha, with the Rupakaya, the form bodies, coming having as their primary cause the 3 perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, and patience. So these 3, the perfection of generosity, the perfection of ethical restraint, and the perfection of patience, are the primary causes leading to the Rupakaya, the form body of the Buddha. The Dharmakaya comes from the perfections of wisdom and perfections of concentration. Their primary cause then is the perfections of wisdom and concentration. So the Dharmakaya has those 2 primary causes. So 3 lead to the Rupakaya, 2 to the Dharmakaya, and then that leaves that of enthusiastic perseverance or joyous perseverance. This applies to both. It's a primary cause for either or both, rather both, the Rupakaya and the Dharmakaya.
其实我们这个错上意有个嘛，特别就是错少过来噻，就是错啥些错现在给我少过来，给我少过来少过来，但错少过来现在给我少，但那就我错现在给我错是给我蒙不就错少了。其实错的了，虽然没有错到一些个错是一起过的，其实他虽然没有错了的，进吧出点说吧，尊这个人们接这个就说呢，虽然没有错那结果，其实他的虽然没有错的，事故主席给做的。虽然没有错的，也是我他担心啊，这个他怕错的了，意思也话，现在虽然没错的，也是错意见，但虽然没错这个，那就这步开始做这个是，所有这个做主吧结果的也是，所以就做的虽然没错的也是，但也是错些的，那东西对别写了，他东西没写那的个，甚至呢写了你的也是错的了，也是错了过的，其实你的有这步开始做这个些的，全部主吧做这个的也是。其实全国去做的开始了呢，也是有错的也是；上一有数据去做的开始了呢，虽然没错的也是呢，但虽然没错的也是错，你要往前。但虽然没错，那了进步出人说把这个错的，一些错那东西对别写了他，那以内这个下头了嘛，对的，但那了都是。
Furthermore, often heard about the need to accumulate extensive merit or extensive virtue. And merit or the accumulation of merit and virtue really refers to the incredible strengthening and habituation or gathering of the habituation of of imprints habituating one to virtue. And so these are divided in the accumulations are sometimes presented as twofold: the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. So these perfections, these perfections then lead to the accumulation of either merit or wisdom, and then lead to the final attainment, when the accumulation is perfected, to the attainment of the four bodies of the Buddha in the forms of those for the benefit of others, the Rupakaya, and the benefit of self, the Dharmakaya. So the accumulation of merit, the accumulation of merit, this comes about through the perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, and patience. And the accumulation of wisdom comes from the perfections of concentration and wisdom. So again, through the accumulation of merit by means of the perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, and patience, one eventually achieves the Rupakaya, the form body, and through the accumulation of wisdom by means of perfections of concentration and wisdom, one achieves the Dharmakaya.
And the names are done with the Sanyu Chusuma, the Sanyu Shadon, Toki Chunamla, City, that Sangi says Sanyu Conjoshi, Temba Sanyu Conjo, and the Chus, the Chukonjosi, that Sanyu Conjola do, then to Suguti Chagore, then to Suguti, Sanyu Conjonala, that's Sangi. And the Captain Boba Sanyu Conjo, Captain Bobo Lion do, Cap Martin Bobo, Chusungan, Chusungan, Sugut Chagura. 지다 산유 건조라는 최고다 구시가 열 산이 차상 유대 바지 이내디네 captain 보보라면도 다디네 수구차 수구 산이 차고를 롱고다 주고이 차르고 산예 최나 소교 최남라시의 상계라면도 당한저 capsum시고로와 지산 capsum나네 상계나네 상계들이야 대지 안저 구시가 유대 산이 시가 유대게 다디나데 captain 보보라 송유도 산지 건조도 captain 보보래라 송유도 captain 보보라서 수구지 차고로 롱고다 주고이 차고로 captain 보보 cap시에 순간데 지상 최세디다 최건조스로 디산지 유기 고된다 남대니 최군이 차고래 지상 cap고에서 가서 타바침에 투모만 메지 cap고에서 산지 유 최고다 롱고 고된다 아니 이시초군이디 최군이디다 최고조제 수고당 주군이디 captain 보보 제제 로하다 산지 최당 초기 초남라서 초디 초세디 전주스면 파베 강사의 고고래 태바침배치 길을 전주스면 파베 초세의 전주스면 파베 강사 멍부들의 초세의 고고래 제산 기능 거죠 디숨나선 거다 제나다 누스는 아주 산지 겸로 송유 겸로 개비되라 산유 건조 최고 건조 기능 거죠 세대 다들어야 개비되려야 태진 투모의 겸로 언제 저 개비유세 태진 투모 많이 비 겸로 언제 개비유세 태진 투모만 봐서 태진 바라랑 삼다वे나 다디래 개비유디 산유 건조 세디 롱고다 주고 이제 되는 최고 건조 세대 산지 파베 규기 산지에 다지스 파베 규기 고된다 남되는 게자 내 파베 규들라도 초세대 전시스 파베 초세고 니 초세디 전시스 파베 규들 고고 파베 규들 말들 딜고 대시 수능소나 이시 초세대 말에 디 초세대 다음 다기 진소 이비 총남기 세대면이데 이제 제 전주샘 개발시로 송으로 당 수이들 다기 진소 이비 총남기시 디 초세대라 수능이 초대 이시 소니를 고고래 다기 진소 이비 진소라도 진바 수좀 소나리아 진바 수좀 쇠바 준비 상대 셰라비로와 디전 총남기 초세대 총남기 세대 대장 다기 진소 이비 총남기 세대라 수능이 초대 이시 소니 채고래 제단 딜을 때네 안에 산유고 토버쇼 시리 구시 뭐 단위적인 산유고 구시스네 뭐니 외시주 롱고 주고 아니 지 구시다 템비 산유고 토버쇼 세월 당지 디소 제단다 진소 기비 초남기 시리 초남이 초나 예시 초이고 거다 아니 산유 주버쇼 산유 토버쇼 시베 산지 딜랑 아주 되지 구시 제네 구시 디 토버쇼 세월 다나 디레 제단 되네게 삼다이도 직리리야 지도 된다 직발이 용도와 제가 산유 최소만 된데 전시심 기배가 쓰나 고 안에 소남기라도 이시 소나서는 묘소 이시 이제 톱제들라는 구시 단위제 산유고 모토고쇼서 디시로 안데 다디시바나 람 진간주 넘긴지다 손은 묘소라 이시 소라이도 아니 구시 단위제 톱여요 소어디 난 랑암시엔서디 냐선데 라디뉴고 안에 고된다 남데 니 가서 죽은이 토비에 된다 교 안에 동반이 고미하다 신의 고미하지 신의유고 주위에 교 안에 진바도 수련서 봐 존재라서 원념에 제야 되게 사실
The start of teaching tonight, like every teaching, one. So it was rather a lot, but anyway, the start of our teaching tonight, like every teaching, we the final recitation is that of going for refuge and generating bodhicitta. So I want to talk a little bit about that verse, not necessarily the version of it we recite before teaching, but that verse in general. So as a translator, I'll do the order of the lines as it is in Tibetan, because that matches Geshe's explanation. So the first line is to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. the Buddha refers to the Buddha jewel, our founder teacher. And now, in relation to what we're looking at here in this verse, it refers to the Nirmanakaya, the Nirmanakaya aspect, the Nirmanakaya aspect of the form body, of the Rupakaya. So this then is the Buddha jewel who appears to us in our world or appeared to us in our world as Buddha Shakyamuni. And so there we have the form body and the Buddha jewel. Then the Dharma, this refers to the true paths and true cessations in the continuum of Arya Bodhisattvas, and in particular, Buddhas. So these true paths and true cessations in the continuum of a Buddha are the Dharmakaya. So there is the Dharmakaya referenced in our verse of refuge, as well as the Rupakaya. So in these, so it's the first and the second word in Tibetan, Buddha and Dharma. This then refers to the form body, the Buddha, and then the Dharma refers to the Dharmakaya. So right there, they are presented at the beginning of our refuge verse. And the third is assembly, so we have or supreme assembly. This then refers to the Arya Bodhisattvas. So it's assembly. It's well translated as assembly, but it can also be translated as accumulation. But here, assembly. So it does not refer to the two accumulations, but refers to the supreme assembly, being that of the Sangha jewel, in particular Arya Bodhisattvas. So that's then the first line. And then the second, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. So this indicates that it's a Mahayana refuge, the refuge that is unique to the Mahayana, in that one is setting one's own commitment to become a Buddha. Then the third line, by the merits I create through generosity and so forth. So this line then refers to the six perfections, or you can express it as the two accumulations, the accumulation of merit through the perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, and patience, as well as the accumulation of wisdom through the accumulation through the perfections of concentration and wisdom. So therefore, where it says generosity and so forth, the usual explanation, which is quite correct, is to say it refers to the six perfections, which is fine. But you can also say that incorporates the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. And then the final line, may become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. And this is the expression of bodhicitta. Again, showing the verse is the unique, is the generation of bodhicitta conjoined with refuge. So this then ties into our verse here, what we have in our second line, the first line in Tibetan, oneself and others. In that, oneself refers to the Dharmakaya, the truth body of the Buddha. And that is something we reference in our refuge verse. And others refers to the form body, the Rupakaya of Buddhas. And this too is something that we reference in the refuge verse. And then the form body comes from the perfections of accumulation, the perfections of generosity, ethical restraint, and patience, as well as that of joyous perseverance. Joyous perseverance also leads to the accumulation of wisdom. So this Geshe now was just recapping what we've covered. Joyous perseverance also leads to the accumulation of wisdom, in that it powers the two primary causes of wisdom and perfection of wisdom and the perfection of concentration. So in this way, through the two accumulations of merit and wisdom, one achieves one's own benefit in terms of the Dharmakaya, which means that one has completely eradicated the causes of suffering. So not even a false appearance appears to the mind, in that the afflictions, together with their seeds as well as their stains, have been completely eradicated. But in order to express or fulfill the bodhisattva aspiration, the aspiration of bodhicitta rather, then the Buddha needs to appear in form. So this is for the benefit of others, the Rupakaya, which has those two parts, the Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya.
토비 체도 개위 냠는 지야다 현준 수고 토비 체도 개위 냠는 지가 세대 될이야 자로 왔다랑 감신이 가야로 세대.
So what this comes down to in this verse is talking about the need to accumulate merit and wisdom. Accumulate merit in particular will lead to the result of for the good of others, and the accumulation of merit leads to the good of oneself.
yang rang shen wang ya rong se de zhe de kem na yap chwa ri ben rang se de rang ni san je ko ma tu be chu de rang ni da jam ni ju ko ya da kom tong ban ye ko ya la so ba de ne gi ge wen nyam ne rang gi rang ni an ji ke san je ko ba tu ge wen nyam ne che ba se de rang gi de rang se de du che cha rang ni da san je ko ma tu be chu rang ni jam ba ko ba ni je ko ba de ne gi 다 동반이를 제주님 공개하라 소바 소수기 샤 소소소 샤 지부 공내가 네 엠바젤을 되게 냠는 제바이나 다 랑이 자데 랑 대심지 생기 된다 지고를 지도 지고를 되나 랑이 세데 신해는 우수 자와 마지베 내가 생기 된다 레데 이나 랑이 지부네 제도체네 냠는 지고에서 랑이 된지 랑이 원도 제바세 되는 제로 가지고래 다 생기 원도 제바데 신해 우수 체지 현리야 确定吧，现在确先别那个，先里啊，金边年本这边那个，先里啊，确实边那个，先说了这边那个，的那个现在我说这样的，这判判这边那个，现在这边就是话，我都现在给我这边，我都现在下去了，让我们现在干样东西，让你身边上有个把推去的，让你那安排了那看板拿了对去。 잠니 조금이야 동반 요금바 나서바다 개회냐면 근데 제베이네야 아니 제내가 되네시들이야 아니 산이기 라버지에 최송바 송바데나 마가바치 오래사다 현 심진의 팬데 주비게 진배님의 지야다 안델이야 아니 지先说了个先来确切吧的，跟金巴的上层的金巴去给金巴，那没几笔金巴了，说吧，就是话的，而且金边人的那个级别，随便人们级别那个不啦，俺都现在先给的我所吐去解决，俺弟弟那个边那个他们就跟着级别呢，两个月绝吧的，人们解决，那上一个老板都现在的那个老板过来送下吧，他每个月钱呢，人们结果也是呢，的那个老板送吧，干银吧，那个的来那。 拉不送吧，看一把是商业业，那那边个程序性比就把拉过来这的，那就送下吧，这里啊，每个话真人们结果的也是，这刚来呀的，这边的对别个了，的那个确实别个了，的那个是蒙古送刷的那个，那卡拉塞维那个年元那个啥的，的那个很多现在就是的那个拉边这边看一把噻的，就咱天天上，但让给顿多，让顿当先有我都去把噻的这些也上去的是。 做让人去过的，现在足够我的现在给我这边是带来家里积极。那让我们现在写的样呢，让我们现在让你几步都现在也把都是对些所需要功能，人们的这所需基础的，对的，客人节的恰恰完了说吧，上的那个对比那后来给人们这边那后来呀，上一老板说不给。 那些送去把的米高瓦的人家们就告诉你，就把这个的米高瓦今年的结果也是。现我说这些现来进把的那个是的那个缺陷的那个人家们就现来判断这边那个里呢，我的这个那个刚都一那样，上一老板送去把老板叫送去把老板的了呀，米高瓦今年是两个人的结果也是，我的那些这些要求的。
So these terms, oneself and others, are presented how they should be understood, but they can be presented in a different way. So I'll present in brief then a second way that one can understand oneself and the term others in this context. So oneself refers to the endeavors that the practitioner themselves needs to engage in, which comes down to hearing teachings, reflecting on their meaning, giving rise to a wish to become a bodhisattva, striving to develop bodhicitta, and having generated bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva, engage in the 6 perfections with a determined attitude to arise as a Buddha, and to arise as a Buddha. So to achieve that, oneself needs to engage in extensive hearing, reflecting, and meditating, doing reflection at home, then going to engage in meditation with calm abiding and meditative insight in isolation, all in order to arise as a Buddha. And arising as a Buddha is the expression of for the sake of others, in that throughout this entire range of activity, hearing teachings, reflecting and meditating on them, giving rise eventually to bodhicitta, and then engage in the six perfections, striving to become a Buddha. This is all done for the sake of others, done oneself for the sake of others. But so that's a deeper way, a further way to understand oneself and others. But to talk further about the term others, and it's not just in terms of they are the purpose behind all one's own or oneself's activities, but as one develops qualities, one's expression of those qualities towards others is an expression of what is developing inside so as to benefit them. In particular, teaching the Dharma. And so that's the practice of generosity, as well as generosity in terms of fearlessness, and giving material support. And whilst doing so, ensuring one abides within the restraint of what is ethical, patient with hardships, and so forth. So in this way, one, for the sake of others, is not just putting them as one's final goal, but in terms of achieving the final goal for others, one is directly engaging with others. And the way of doing so, as mentioned, is in particular that of giving the Dharma, but not only that. So now we read the third and fourth line. Diligently practice the training that has been taught for just such a situation. So just such a situation links back to wherever, whenever, whatever you're doing. So what has been taught for those situations? Well, there in the 37th verse, Shantideva spoke in those verses around the 37th. He spoke about how to walk, how to interact with others or walk around others. In the 79th, how to speak. The 80th, look at others. And then solitude, eating, sitting, and most recently preparing to sleep. So for the last 60 verses or so, these have been sporadically presented. So this then is diligently practice the training that has been taught for just such a situation. So that refers to how to engage with others and do so within the bounds of what is ethical, and practice patience at the same time and generosity wherever one can.
Denige labar sumba sanyi dode nalia nusus labjo labure se labar sonche pakanyi badile ani megawa negap tele nyamen chibe kala bede labar ja sen zunri beje dan zunri chen de nyam suling or nyamen che ore labure sa dona da direction.
So those were those final two lines. Diligently practice. So diligently practice or with great vigor the training that has been taught for just such a situation.
That Geshe namji mila ba dine kaya yuminde dedar nebe kebala sunem migyo kaya mes.
In the 100th verse, there is no such thing as something that bodhisattvas do not learn and train in. Thus, for those who have mastery, are learned and skilled, there is nothing that does not become virtuous.
That Geshe namji mila ba sede gaya yoba dine kaya yuminde Geshe chanshu semba namji ane malabige ane yundeng che gaya me yomare sech. Geshe namji mila ba gaya dine kaya yuminde sede Geshe chanshu semba namji malabige shishigi che gaya yomare sech kuko sungor dana sikduri shubayina.
The first two lines. There is no such thing as something that bodhisattvas do not learn and train in. So just to emphasize, there is nothing that a bodhisattva says, this is something I don't need to bother with. There is no such thing as something that bodhisattvas do not learn and train in.
제다다 Geshe namji melebigi 최강하여 말해서 전주선바 남지 차상라고 거리시지. 가르스네 신이 된 주고라 신이 주발라 라고 거리해지래. 제다 산지 고방 토발라 전에 가소래 리비네가라 캐고래 캐바 차고래 리비네가라 막 해봐이나 근데 전주선바 파베 가서 있나야 근데 산지 고방 토투고 말했어. 근데 되게 나라 디네 순고래 리비네가 달라 전부를 맞이나 파쇼기 야 탐지ken이 미규르데스 제산 리베네알로 준리체 맞아바이나 안지 유심바 파바이나야 아니 파비 파초스데다 파바남기 초도교 바제 유심바 파비 파바이나야 아니 데데 탐지기 안에 산 탐지켄바 최담지 용어스도 배 타르치메 이시 산기요고 방세디 톡톡마레스 제제 데네서 리베네알라 캐바체 오레스
The reason why there is no such thing as something that bodhisattvas do not learn and train in is because a bodhisattva has developed the firm and stable commitment that they will help others in any way they possibly can. So therefore, the bodhisattva will want the broadest range of skills so as to be able to benefit others. If there are areas that the bodhisattva lacks knowledge, there will be in those ways they will not be able to benefit others. So with the wish to be of benefits in any way they can, the bodhisattva will train in anything that they can and express it in a virtuous way. I'm going to quote it from Maitreya's Sublime Continuum. Unless you strive in the 5 topics of knowledge, or the 5 sciences, unless you strive in the 5 topics of knowledge, even Arya Bodhisattvas will not become omniscient Buddhas.
That's a Ribenanga like Havaja or is. That Ribenanga de la Rene Chawanga, Chuanga, said Ribene, Jushawar, Yawachi, the Juria, the Ribenanga, said the Ribenanga, Ribene Chawanga, the Chuanga. The Ribene Chawanga said the person, sorry, so it to Gusu, that the nigger Sui, Nesu, Shandil, just sorry, said. In so everybody, many go share the main go child so river. Then tragic pass or the drag go to Hatiniki. The 10 repass you on the Sema said, repat and the teacher and the Diung, the teacher and the Diung said, Jinshimsha. Then now the repass or now the repass said, and under that, now be now check it, look at the Nilam Yam Riba share. She said, Dennis, that river, Rinechawanga said, sorry, but so ripa, tragipa, 10 ripa, now the ripa, or do send this week, Janja Kaba. 마차바이나 안에 산요가 와토도 말해서 리베냐가 내가 리베냐 샤와 장고 오래셔.
So these most commonly translated as the 5 sciences or the 5 topics of knowledge. Whilst it's often enumerated just as 5, there are actually 10. There are 5 major topics of learning and 5 minor topics of learning or knowledge. So the 5 major topics of learning or knowledge, these refer to medicine, so the knowledge of medicine to heal. Secondly, that of technical arts. Thirdly, that of grammar. Fourthly, logic and reasoning. And fifthly, inner knowledge, in other words, Buddhism or Buddha Dharma. So the 5 major topics of learning, again, medicine, technical arts, grammar, logic and reasoning, and the Buddha Dharma.
Rigni chunga sedile nyenga seore nyenga monju depchor degar dene kerti sedi dene ginga dela ta rigni chunga nga seorda.
And the 5 minor topics of learning or knowledge, these are poetry, etymology, rhetoric, theoretical performances, and astrology. So I'll say that the 5 minor topics of learning, poetry, etymology, rhetoric, theoretical performances, and astrology.
Esa denigi ribe nenga la kevachene then chiki denigi kevati chawore kese chanshu semba namji malaba ke chue khayo bar se denigi and malebi ke ringnia la soba khayo marese de chasan la gores jesa dusine lapche san yoko pa to san yoko pala to bala dis chasan la kewo gore deni keba cheba di garsene shenri du bogora shenji duen du yala chue kyanya she de jin shen du de je marwa da gashi chue ke melenge so le shen du gorwa da jesa disulia sorry bada so yang de menju jeje mengi ton de labia la so bada ne menju jeje so sugi me shen le menju je shen du bia shen le mengi ton da labje shen du bia an jing an shen ya an sorry ba do shen so ne an ji ro ba chen de shen du bia sorry ba din labje an do shen ro ba che la so bada ne ge na so yung go ro de ne za din cha san le shen du ba la je ba la cha san 고고 배지 고고와 된자 현년 주비 튕기 인자돼서 장고고래 세 제단 전주 선반은 기말라바 되니까 요 말. 디차산라 고고래 세 디수모래.
These major and minor topics of knowledge, these bodhisattvas strive to become knowledgeable and skilled in order to bring benefit to others. Because again, they are guided by this commitment that they've made, and it's not just a mere expression of words, but it's a guiding principle to be of benefit to others in any way they can. So therefore, they develop all the possible skills they can. So if we think of some of them, medicine, it's very clear. By being skilled in medicine, they can help beings heal from suffering. And in terms of technical arts, then they can help with the various artistic endeavors, teach others in those in particular, then combining with a good motivation, and so forth. So the bodhisattva will strive to become proficient in these so as to become a Buddha. And how does becoming proficient in these 10 topics help one become a Buddha? Because they will be utilized as an expression of one's bodhisattva motivation to be of benefit to others, to ease the suffering of others. This way, leading to the accumulation of merit and the eventual attainment of Buddhahood.
So I did the negative six, then Yanga, Ringo Chuanga, say Yanga, said, Ringo Chuanga, Yanga, Munju, Dipjur, Duga, Jezada, Shenlia, Chu, Yaman Chevalia, Yanga, Signibu, when they share water, Signibu Mena, and Yang Marwa, the Signibu meal by Yang, the Semna Kalana, the Dunyachi, Yanga, the Negata, and Depture City, Depture Yabu, then that could Chazan Chango, Chizan Dugar, Dugarti Chan Mores, Chizan Kritiniki Chazan, Shannon Juvealea, and the Niki Kugo Royala, there's that is Chazan Chango session.
Amongst these 5 major and 5 minor topics, we can see some directly expressed in this text. So, for example, to be able, for Shantideva, to have been able to compose and recite a text such as this, he needed to be skilled in poetry, so as to be able to express something that is extraordinarily beautiful. And then he needed to be skilled in terms of rhetoric as well as grammar. So there's and also knowledgeable in etymology. So all of this knowledge and skill or proficiency in this knowledge enables great beings such as Shantideva to benefit others. And we see this so clearly in a text such as this.
Dineza, Geshe Thubten Namji, Ribe Nangala, Malabigi Nanga Gayas, Agaya Yoba Yomares, Chasan Dusila Koresia, Yuminde. Deder Nebi Kabala, Sunamiko Gayames, the Nigi and the Ribe Nangala, Le Kasore, the Nigi Lumne, and Nebis, Neva, the Nigi Lumne, Jen Shishina, Demi Tony, Neja, the Nigi, and Tabla Kaba. Tabla Kabala, and the Nigim, Jihendelia, and Sunam Mujo Gayames, the Gama Sabayoma, Chazandus, Denigi, Garchevina, Jerusalem, the Nigi, Chazan Gawacha, or Sunam Mujo Gayames.
So that then explains that the first 2 lines, there is no such thing as something that bodhisattvas do not learn and train in. So from the presentation of these 5 major and 5 minor topics of knowledge, we can see just what a broad education a bodhisattva will strive to gain in. And they won't just be satisfied with a slight understanding or even a deep but solely intellectual understanding. They will, now in the 3rd line, they will, thus for those of mastery are learned and skilled, so they'll look to become masters of their craft, as learned and skilled in these various ways. So just now to say as an aside from the translator, so the word that is usually translated as scholar I've translated it in this third line in two ways, either as mastery or as two words, learned and skilled, because scholar in English doesn't sit so well, so it's quite limited. But the meaning is mastery or being learned and skilled in something. So back to what Geshe said. So the Bodhisattva will gain a very broad education. And again, this education will be to the point of where they have mastery over their topic, or they are learned and both learned and skilled in it. And because of this mastery, there is nothing, the fourth line, there is nothing that does not become virtuous. In other words, this broad and deep education they've attained, received, they will be able to utilize it with this bodhisattva motivation to be of great benefit. Therefore, there is nothing that does not become virtuous.
Dyoga chabala so yungurwa jisan disuyne gewa chagore gewi chagore si dyoga sene chamthaya yorwa dyoga sene gar sene chaba sura tang jogi dene shena chabya jorwa she da dene ge thaya yungura de dyoga se dene ge dyoga ge tenje jige range she nyamsule shenlia dosen labya da rangi dene ge chaba yosigirwa dene nebanza dene ge yungure jesa chasa gewa yungure se.
With the third and fourth line, it makes clear why the Bodhisattva will gain such a broad education. So amongst these 10 sciences, the 10 topics of learning, the one that we know are most interactive with is that of Buddhist spiritual philosophy or Buddhism. So that's very clear. The whole motivation is to benefit others. But some others within these 10, such as theoretical performances, one may seem that's a bit distant from being of benefit to others. But nevertheless, through a bodhisattva becoming highly proficient or skilled, gaining mastery in theatrical performances, they will be able to use that skill to benefit others because of the quality of their bodhicitta, motivating how they utilize this skill.
Dyogar sayadi, dyogar ki dine ki bi tenchu ki ta jang che shen le labya la shen le labya ki pando chuya yungurwa. Ta yang chi ki dyogar sayade sosu ki chawaya yungurwa, dine ki bine kuncho liya chebo puya, zhuye chebo puya shabro chapche she tangchi, ta chi sosu ki, deso sosu ki she tang shabro la chakwi ki chakwa keba ma yinba, shen le ya ngomya ma yinba, and the sosuke yaji benjuraya chidu mayimba. Sangi lama dan denelia chebi or chebaran some de cheba pugu samtane, and she cheba puya. Denigi ya simja tamjigi to na san yukoban to be chido, the cheba puya laya, do cheba puina, that is son of Zagora, the cheba said, the dinner to her denigi, sosuke tam the pubaina, and there's a gavasagore, Chisa dinere. Di membe yang jiga shen semjen shen liya ane pe jiga semba jiwu yang ya semma jiwa da tene je pe gobu khonsu li jiwu yang ya khonsu li penpe baishi samda je khonsu ge da dunga digi paa se je galang lang yang ya ge digi yang ya ge che du du che ne yang jiga maa samda je ane jiga chabayi ne yang jiga gewa sago ra shen ki shen 내가 semma jiwa da ganga yue de bene paa se je 내가 rangya jik digi chigo ya ito nal du shebe ne du shi ne gewa yungur shebe ne gewa sagorwa jisa dini inza du shi ne duyaga digi chebe ne sunan mi yu kaya me yasin ene gewa masawa kaya me gewa sagor esa je.
Looking at the final line a little more, there is nothing that does not become virtuous. So the Bodhisattva then, guided by this remarkable motivation of bodhicitta, will develop a broad range of skills and utilize them to benefit others in ways which are more obvious and perhaps in ways that are less so. So, for example, in terms of theatrical performances, so there's this genre of religious dance. So that would be quite clear. This is an area that a bodhisattva may well train in and utilize that skill in religious performance, and thereby, in that context, the audience will generate merit through them watching the dance and being guided in various ways of thinking or what that dance inspires within them. And they may also use these various skills, because we saw others, not just theatrical performances, but technical arts as well. And they could perhaps train others in how to become dancers or play instruments in the religious context, or in terms of the various other artistic forms as well. And in the imparting of this technical knowledge, the bodhisattva would also guide their students in how to develop this skill and an excellent motivation, a suitable and appropriate motivation, and thereby also benefit others. So this is a more obvious expression of the expression to gather virtue through these 10 areas of knowledge. But less obvious would be in a more mundane way, just to bring some entertainment and some wholesome entertainment, and thereby some joy to suffering beings. Recognizing that there are those for whom this religious life doesn't draw them so much, but yet they are burdened by troubles and difficulties. So just with this motivation of even temporarily easing their woes by guiding them, or not guiding, but temporarily ease their woes by distracting them, bringing some joy into their lives. The bodhisattva may well do so, and because of their bodhicitta motivation, will accumulate extensive virtue. But because of their motivation, what will be absent from the bodhisattva's endeavors here would be for any hope for material gain or other expression of attachment, such as reputation or to be liked and praised. So those kinds of mundane motivations will be absent for the bodhisattva because their bodhicitta will guide them. So whether they are working explicitly in a religious context or a more mundane everyday context, they will be guided by this remarkable motivation. And therefore, there is nothing that does not become virtuous.
Dene sunu mi yukaya mes, dene zadang anjuge, dene gi jige dyogar chabala soba da dene tong soba ina, jigmi zo kunlong la janshi senpa di chebe nene shen simje gyu dunda, giwi jawa kuni jige inzang gewa jansa gorwa, dene zang anjuge dene ina lamsa oda di, odu xia chagu du se de lamsa madeba jie dan ka dan ya roji mewa la cha gorwa, dene kine so hamo wa ina, chizade 네 조조 가린 명한 중에 전시선바디게 되는 제가도 이날 내가 주길 전시선바 이메하고 말와도 수인의 되는시 지도 타선한테 전시선바 이나 많이 가서 군로 가는 가서 하고 말 남상한 지도 어디 배도 잘하셔서 카타샤베는 아직 전시선바로 지메는 디케선에 내가 지금 디버사 아침 책으로 어디에서 도세 전시선바는 비도시네 타바지 하고 봐네 될 마디밖에요 말해서 전시 선바디 내기 부지 잡으러 타야다 되는지 뭐 전시 선바시 인바시 가서 하고나 어디에 전시 선바를 되고 빼 참네 야구 민도사에 되는지 시야요 말해서 마디바기요 말해서 그걸 러시아니오 코니 집에 개와서 거로 와디네서 먼저 마디바기요 말해서 다시 숨고로 받아.
To make a point, drawing what we have presented here into the broader context of what we're looking at in this chapter. Be aware that a remarkable being, a bodhisattva, will engage in a wide variety, it will develop a very broad education, guided by their bodhicitta. And they will express this broad motivation, powered by their motivation of bodhicitta, in a wide variety of ways. Reflect on this, and use your reflection to refrain from general criticism. For example, why should an aspirant bodhisattva, or why would a bodhisattva train in this, and dismiss it and criticize? Or take it far broader, recognizing we really do not know who is and is not a bodhisattva. We do not know what the motivation behind people's various endeavors are. So, rather, use that understanding to refrain from judgment, to refrain from criticism. Because, whilst it's certainly by no means that all that we observe is activities of bodhisattvas, but there will be those who are. So use this as a skillful means to guard the mind from going in an afflicted direction and criticizing others, and rather just be open to that those who are bodhisattvas will train in things which are otherwise very mundane, learning various arts, learning and so forth, in order to be of benefit, and express this in various ways, including merely to distract people from their troubles, to bring some temporary joy into their lives.
Bendigo and chik chasan le ringnya le khabash ko gores chesana nangde riba le khabash nangbi nangde shen le chue she nyamlen denje rimba ma chi bala nangde riba shin ko gore anji ne chue she bala anji denegi anji shenji adi tigmin gyönje che bala di dire di mare denere se she che pa chamari riba da deni che bala chamari densi riba de shin ko gore chesana tari pa da do she chesan shen ne riba le di chasan shin ko ba yinza da don da yinbo de chasan shen ne jibe yan la cha ru wa chesan de ne ge khaba cha gore chesan da ya har pandita se di chesan ribe ne nga la khaba cha de ne ge na de riba pe che khaba ribe ne nga la khaba de pandita se de mi tho gore chesan ya har pendup se de ya har pandita di ge chesan gombo lu bla so ba da arye de wala so ba ko chesan da de ne ge 나도 개발자 리베닝 하나 개발자 반디다 세치죠. 지다가 저기 조지기 샤머쇼 우제들 반샤서 반샤 샤머디 민 우제들 민 반샤서 ور 반샤 반디다 샤머서래. 지다디 데네기 쳐발라 리베닝 하나 개발자 고월된다 된다 된 바체바이나. 지나 데네기 지다디 야 반디다 세디 단나디 베체 나도 캐바 냠레 비임바 질라 리베 냥하나 캐바 차선은 반디다 데네게 캐바 베제 캐바 시우이면은 리베 냥하지 차산 신변에 반디다 민토고 말해서도 하대 다들 리베 냥하 다들 중앙에 도대가 나중에 체왕한테 저러다 체왕한테 나 체왕아 중앙한테 지금 이러다 리베 냥하게 캐고래서도
reflecting or recalling then these topics of learning or topics of knowledge, is sciences, we see the great need to develop an education and to deeply integrate that education so that we become proficient and skilled in it. Not just mere intellectual knowledge, but so that it becomes practical and expressible. So of these topics of knowledge, the 5 major and the 5 minor, the one that we're most used to interacting with is that of the inner science or the inner knowledge, which is Buddhist philosophy. And this is of particular importance because this is the cultivation of the motivation by which we will utilize the other topics of knowledge. And it's through the development of this particular topic of knowledge, that of the Buddha Dhamma, the inner science, that one develops the motivation to become proficient in all the others. Now just repeat the others, logic, grammar, medicine, and technical arts. So those are the other 4 of the major ones, and the 5 minor ones are poetry, etymology, rhetoric, theoretical performances, and astrology. To become proficient in all of these in order to benefit as many beings as one can and in the most appropriate of manners. So therefore, Bodhisattvas will strive to gain this broad education, and this is something that was recognized in ancient India too. So we know of the term pandit, and the meaning of the word pandit is someone who is skilled in particular, the 5 major topics of knowledge, but one would assume the 5 minor would be included there as well. So we can think of pandits such as Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, and so many others. So because they were awarded such a title, then we knew they would have been proficient in these, at least the major topics of knowledge, but most probably all 10. And it's also the symbolism behind the hat worn, for example, there by Lama Atisha, that hat is a pandit's hat that is being worn, which means Atisha was recognized as being proficient in these major topics of learning, and again, most probably the 5 minor ones as well. So therefore, the meaning here is, to be of benefit to others, one needs as broad an education as possible, but that needs to be conjoined with the motivation of the Dharma, of the Mahayana Dharma of bodhicitta.
Andondala dan anjuge dade chanshi semba na bidu sinyamle nangore shishubare tinza da anju ine da anjuge da jege gawa karutuwe ne rangul ji lungangi jeba de ani sanyi yi ga da mege we thone anju nyamsu je hwa chi da ani kuno le anjuge jige gewe anju gawa karuja lawa jawa karuche ba de gewe ngo le troda maros kuno le rali ko kuno rali ba za anjuge gewe jawa karuchebene shenliye penbechidu yin simjatami sanyogo batobechidu yin sembe samda chebe yin dang juge jige ngewa joya de diungora dine zada denegi anzugi da digi tone anzulia laba je nyamso laegi anzu lalentaya dire da jesang anzu gewe jawa karuchebe na anji shen ngosu tuone shenle pando zhubai na da ane rang jigbo deje nyamle gewe gewa zhubai na da dele jinan lungang jebade sanji laba jebe gata megawa ji nyamlen jwa ji da ane denege gewe nishan le jawa khar jebe ne shen le pemba ji na shen pembe dan da yin sembe sam da gewe denege sam da kuno da ne jeba na da gewa sa ge ji bar cha de ro ba deni je de o deni she dirin de ja shen da.
The 2 verses we've looked at tonight, we see how bodhisattvas practice, how they train themselves in order to be of benefit to others. So what I encourage you to take away from this class is to firstly continue to focus on developing this motivation of bodhicitta. And whatever degree to which one has this aspiration, use that as a motivation behind all that you do. Generated in the morning, generated again and again throughout the day, the very least, have as a guiding principle, I will not bring any harm. And ideally, I'll be of benefit wherever I can. Because with such a motivation, whatever one does will bring virtue. You will ensure you do not bring harm to others, and in whatever way you can, in accordance with the capacity, you'll bring a help to others, you'll be of benefit to others. So in this way, as it says here in the first 2 lines that we looked at in the 99th verse, wherever, whenever, whatever you are doing, whether for oneself or for others. So in that way, keep generating one's virtuous motivation to not harm, to be of benefit. And then whatever one is doing will bring benefit. And moreover, to link then to the second verse we looked at, you all have a wide variety of skills that you've developed throughout your life, both in formal education and as you've grown as an adult and grown as a person, you have a wide variety of skills. Use those skills to be of benefit to others. And some you may have mastery over, others perhaps not, but whatever degree you have, use the various skills and talents you have, conjoined or powered by a wholesome, virtuous motivation to be of benefit to others. And wherever you can grow and develop this variety of skills, do so. But in particular, those skills, in other words, that of the Dharma, that cultivate the motivation, that makes all that one does virtuous. So deepen your knowledge, broaden your knowledge, in particular, that of the powering virtuous motivation. And then thank you. We can conclude there for tonight. Thank you.